what to say to shut down that narcissist in your life. So remember that a narcissist wants to control you. That's how they get their feeling of narcissistic supply. That's what feeds them, is, you know, controlling you, intimidating you, making you feel awful, debasing you, you know, sending you into a panic. And if you want to know how to make a narcissist panic, you should definitely check out my video on how to make a narcissist panic. You know, they want to send you into that state of panic. They want you to be the one who's like on the defensive all the time. And I help people negotiate with narcissists, negotiate with toxic personalities, get the edge, get that leverage, figure out how to finally turn those tables, how to finally shift that dynamic, and so that you're the one feeling powerful, because they want you to feel like you can never win. They want you to feel like it's never going to end. And they will continue to do that as long as they're getting some sort of narcissistic supply, which is, you know, that smug satisfaction that they're controlling you and getting the edge over you. They're going to continue to be in your life. And that's why some of you have been dealing with these people for years. And, you know, they collect people as forms of supply, like people collect jars of jam or something for the winter. You know, they line them up on the shelves and go, oh, I can get more supply out of this one. I can get more supply out of that one. So as long as they're getting some form of narcissistic supply from you, you're going to continue to have to deal with them. It's like taking that fire and sucking all the oxygen away from it. That's the only way that you'll finally be able to shut them down. So the first way that you can shut down that narcissist is to just say no. And if you want to know more about what happens when you say no to the narcissist, you should definitely check out my video on what happens when you say no to a narcissist, when you just say no. What happens is that the narcissist is so used to controlling you. They've set up this elaborate situation where you feel powerless, where you feel like, oh, I can't ever, you know, get away from this. And it's almost so foreign to you. It's like putting on somebody else's clothes or somebody else's shoes. You know, you're thinking, ugh, I can't, seems so strange to me. What's going to happen? You know, is the world going to fall apart? Are they going to lose control on me? And if you want to know what happens when a narcissist loses control, check out my video on that. But you know, when you say no to a narcissist, it's you starting to take back your power. It's you starting to say, you know what, this is not okay. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to do that thing that you think that I should do. I'm not going to be that person that you think that I should be. I'm not going to take the deal that you're offering me. I'm not going to take the, you know, the settlement proposal. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to push back. I'm going to go for what I want. And yeah, maybe there might be some backlash from it, but even if you trigger their narcissistic rage because you've you know, touched on their narcissistic injury in some way, just remember that the narcissist is always the worst right before they're ready to give up. So just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. The narcissist is one of the most scared little people on the planet. The not so secret is that you are actually the stronger one. They didn't attach themselves to you because you had no value. They attached themselves to you because you have so much value, because they can get that narcissistic supply from you. So try out just saying no to them for one or two things and see how it goes. The second thing is, I hear you. All people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. And I talk about that in my book, Negotiate Like You Matter. It's actually in my book. Matter is the acronym for how to negotiate, and M actually stands for my value is defined by me. You and you alone define your value. We all want to know that we matter. That's all part of being human. And, you know, in some ways we all have like a narcissist in us, but it's not, we don't use that word, because what narcissism really is when it gets to the pathological stage where, you know, they can't see anybody but themselves, and they can't feel anything for anyone but themselves. And so they're just constantly, you know, doing whatever they can to feel that. So if you say, I hear you, it actually kind of softens them a little bit, and they stop like barking right at you and going right after you, because they feel seen, heard, and they know that they matter. Sometimes it's called narcissistic fluffing, where you fluff up their ego a little bit. You know, you can give them a little compliment or something just to get what you want in exchange for something. But just saying, I hear you, that will help to shut them down. The next thing is saying, I trust you, or I trust that. And it's kind of like what I talk about in my book, which is embedded commands, where you're basically kind of telling them how you feel. I trust that you care about the children. I trust that you want a good settlement. This is all part of what I talk about with ethically manipulating the manipulator. That's a really, really important part of how you get to slaying the narcissist in negotiation. And I talk about my slay methodology in my program, which is slay your negotiation with a narcissist. So strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you. But when you say, you know, I trust you, or I trust that, you're kind of like putting thoughts out there that they can't disagree with. So it helps to shut them down. The next one is say nothing. Just continue to look at them, let them rant, let them rave. Just, you know, put yourself in a situation as if you're watching it in a movie, or you're watching a scene on a stage in a play, or you're watching a 2-year-old have a tantrum on the floor. You're just going, okay, you know, I'm watching you, so you don't say anything. And saying nothing just absolutely drives them crazy, and it helps to shut them down, because eventually there's nothing to fight with. There's no bait. There's nothing more that they can use. And, you know, sometimes it takes a tremendous amount of restraint to do this, but just try it out and see what happens. Just say nothing. And if you are so ready to shut down that narcissist, give me a shut them down in the comments right now. The next one is everything is okay. This, you know, makes them feel like, hey, we're in this together. We're going to figure this out together. It's all right. I mean, you're sort of treating them like a toddler, because they really are like toddlers. They kind of never really grew out of that stage of, you know, the toddler's creed. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine. Everything is mine. If I want it, it's mine. If, you know, even if I threw it away, it's still mine. But, you know, that's the old toddler's creed. In this instance, you're just sort of saying, it's okay. Everything's okay. We'll figure this out. You can just calm down, you know, and that's, again, you're not giving them anything to push back on. You know, how can they argue with that? And the last one is my absolute favorite, which is, drum roll please, no contact. Get rid of them. Out. Goodbye. Bye, Felicia. See you later. Hopefully never. Have a nice life, but have it away from me. And that's what I had to do with the narcissists in my life. And thankfully, I haven't had to talk to them for a long time. And hopefully you won't either. Just suck that oxygen away from that fire. Do not give them anything that they can use. Goodbye. You know, enjoy your life somewhere else away from me. And I have to tell you, from my perspective, what I've had to do as well is stay away from even the people that I know are in those people's lives. You know, it's unfortunate. There were people that I liked. There were people that I would have wanted to stay in touch with, but I cannot have any contact or even contact with their flying monkeys or anyone in their worlds, because you know, my peace of mind, my life is not worth what it would take to be involved with anything to have to do with those narcissists. And I promise you it will get so much better. And I promise you that I've helped so many people get past narcissists by negotiating their way out of those relationships and getting the settlement that you deserve. That's fair. That's equitable. I've been able to turn it around. It's part of karma. It's part of quantum law. You can do this. You can absolutely put your mind to this and get where you want to get.
So now let's talk about triangulation and flying monkeys. If you don't know what a flying monkey is, it is a person that is being used against you by that narcissist. And they may not even know that they're being used as a flying monkey, or sometimes maybe they know that they're being lined up against you, but sometimes they don't even realize that that's what's going on. And if you want to know more about flying monkeys, you should definitely check out my video on flying monkeys. But it comes from the Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch had flying monkeys, and these flying monkeys would kind of do her dirty work and go along with whatever it was that she wanted to do. They were just there kind of hanging out and being used against people, Dorothy, and there was the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and the Lion, to scare them and also to intimidate. They were kind of scary looking, weird creatures, right? So that's what a flying monkey is. And the triangulation is part of what a narcissist uses to manipulate, punish, and control you. And definitely check out my video on what tactics they use for manipulation and control to learn more about what all of the ones are that they use. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, especially during the discard phase, then flying monkeys are going to start getting lined up. But they start lining up the flying monkeys even while you're in a relationship with them. Both of the narcissists that I had to deal with were doing that. And it was one of those things when it was happening to me that I could feel that these narcissists were talking about me to people they thought would, hurt me, or that it would be especially powerful to have them be against me in some way. And I could feel it, but I didn't know exactly what was going on. I certainly didn't have the terminology of flying monkey or triangulation or even narcissism. I didn't even know that these people were narcissists yet. At that point, I was really more just like, this doesn't feel right. Something's going on here. Something is wrong. I feel like these people don't like me, or they're lining up to be with these people. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. But here's the kind of phrases. There are certain kinds of phrases that the narcissists use in order to triangulate. One of the phrases that they use to you: everyone thinks, everyone else believes that you are an alcoholic. Everyone knows how difficult you are. Everyone knows how great I am. Everyone thinks that I am successful. Everyone else believes that I'm a great dad or a great mom. But you're the only one who doesn't think that. Everyone knows how I've built this business and how great I am to work for. You're the only one who has the problem. So kind of the flip of everyone thinks is you're the only one. And that's one of the ways that they start triangulating. And this is where I say that these are people who aren't, they don't even know that they're being used as flying monkeys. But it's a term meant to gaslight you, trying to make you think that you're crazy, is that everyone thinks you're the only one that thinks that. The second one is always. So they go and they tell people, she always says this about me, or she's always drinking too much. He's always late for picking up the children, always. So they use words like always to make it seem like it's just a constant thing. And, these are things that might have happened once. I mean, there might have been one time where you were late, either to work or to picking up the kids or whatever. And now this person is going to characterize this as this always is happening to other people. They'll say that sort of thing. So basically what's happening when they are trying to triangulate is they are trying to get this person to give them credibility, to give them validity, and also make you feel bad. So it's kind of like a double thing that they get out of this is they get this credibility, which bolsters their ego, which feeds their narcissistic supply. And coupled with it also makes you feel intimidated, makes you feel bad, hurts you in some way, makes you think that you're crazy and you're the only one, or makes you think that all these people are lining up against you and everyone is on their side and not on your side, or especially people that mean something to you. And if you have seen this and you have been a victim of this and you know that this is not okay, give me a not okay in the comments. So the next one that they use is even. And how they use even is like, even the worst person in the world knows that fill in the blank. Even my crazy ex never acted as bad as you. Even your mother doesn't like you. Even the people on the street were looking at you and seeing how unhinged you were. Even the drunkest people at the party saw how your behavior was so bad. Things like that. So even is another way that they start to triangulate. And they might even say it to other people, like as they're talking bad about you, even that, the neighbors saw that or heard them screaming or heard him or her doing something or whatever. So these are the types of evens that they'll use for other people to try to line those people up against you and make you feel like, even the biggest scum of the earth is seeing you and judging you or is better than you in some way. So the flip side of all of these words can also be used as well. So, every time or always can always be never. And no one thinks instead of everyone thinks. The idea is really just to try to make you feel like you're on an island alone, that no one else thinks the way you think, that everyone else believes that the other person is wonderful. You're never going to get anywhere. You shouldn't even bother to try. It's also to try to make you feel jealous, make you feel small, make you feel controlled by this person, intimidated by this person. They get everybody thinking that they're wonderful, and the flip side of you feeling terrible and intimidated or jealous, or like everyone thinks badly of you in some way and thinks wonderful of the other person in some way. So they'll use whatever they need to, especially with people that they think will be extremely hurtful to you, like maybe your family or other people that you work with, or people who are close to you. Anybody who they think that they're really, really good at finding the weak spots, the people who might fall for what it is that you're going to say. One of the things that I noticed when I was dealing with a family member who's a narcissist is that this person would go up to the other person and act like the victim. Like, I've tried so hard, and, they're just not kind to me. They're not good to me. And then the other person would come back to me and my husband and say, oh, maybe you could try harder, or maybe you could give this person another chance, or, because obviously that person who's now become a flying monkey has no idea what the history of the relationship was, or the kinds of things that had been done. They only know the sad story, the victim story. Covert narcissists are especially great at this. This is why I really just have a massive disdain for covert narcissists. If you want to know more about covert narcissists, check out my video on covert narcissism and relationships. I go into much, much deeper information about that. But they're especially good at playing the victim. And, this person who is much more powerful than me was able to take advantage of me, and it's not fair, and life isn't fair. And so that's another way that narcissists use as a method of triangulation.
Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. Let's talk about phrases that narcissists use to control you. There are a lot of different ones that they use, but the good news for you is that narcissists actually do use the same types of phrases that in all different sorts of situations. I mean, the one thing I often say is that they're horrible, they're heinous, they're toxic, but it's almost like they use the same playbook. They are actually pretty predictable in their behavior. Are there different types of narcissists? Absolutely, there are. There are covert narcissists, there are grandiose narcissists, there are malignant narcissists. And by the way, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I do have a whole video on that. I do believe that covert narcissists are probably the most dangerous type of narcissist in a lot of ways because they're the most difficult to detect. A lot of times they're the stealthiest ones. They look kind and sweet, and a lot of times they paint themselves as a victim. Sometimes they're like downtrodden. Oh, poor me. They guilt trip people a lot of times. And so a lot of times the coverts are the most difficult ones to spot. And the two that I had to deal with that targeted me were both covert. So going back to phrases that narcissists use to control you, one of them is no one else will love you the way that I will, or no one else understands you the way that I do. No one else will deal with you. Basically trying to make you feel like you're so disgusting, repulsive, horrible, whatever, in some way that you might as well not go anywhere else because they're the only ones who can, manage you, handle you, like you, love you, whatever. But yet somehow they love you, they like you, they deal with you, they manage you. But, you might as well stick with them because they do. But it's like kind of messed up because why do they stick with you and like you and love you or whatever? It kind of defies logic
but yet that is something that they often will say, so it's sort of like to get you to stay, because if you go anywhere else, you're going to be rejected. You'll be alone. You'll be isolated. So you might as well stick with this person who's basically mentally, psychologically, and spiritually abusing you. So that's number one. Number two is they talk in absolutes. Everyone else thinks this, or no one else thinks that. Like, basically to try to get you to believe that whatever it is that you think is just stupid, dumb, ridiculous, not based in reality. If you're trying to make a point to them about something that you think, usually about something about them, they'll try to use this collective who the hell knows who. You don't even know who everyone else is, or no one else is, but these, nebulous whoever's don't agree with you. They all agree with the narcissist, whoever these people are. But it's meant to try to make you feel bad. It's meant to try to make you feel like your opinion is completely discredited, invalidated, means nothing, and therefore you shouldn't have it, because whoever their flying monkeys are, they all are lined up with them and against you. So that's another kind of phrase that narcissists use to control you. Another type of phrase that narcissists use to control you, and there are going to be several of these. We're going to go into the types of phrases that narcissists use within the gaslighting realm. By the way, I do have a whole video on how to shut down gaslighting, which you should definitely check out as well. But so these are the types of phrases that narcissists will use to make you think that you're crazy, because gaslighting is meant to make you think that you're crazy. It's meant to make you feel like whatever it is that you're thinking isn't true, to make you question your mind, to make you question your reality, to make you question what it is that you believe that you saw or you heard, or what you're seeing isn't what you're seeing, or what you're hearing isn't what you're hearing, or what the conversation is that you believe took place isn't what you took place. Your feelings aren't your feelings. That's what gaslighting is. So they will say things in the gaslighting realm such as, you're oversensitive. So you're oversensitive is to invalidate your feelings. So if you are feeling hurt about something that took place, then they'll say you're oversensitive. You shouldn't be hurt about that. That's meant to invalidate your feelings. Another gaslighting phrase is something like, we talked about that, and this is what we agreed to. You agreed to this, don't you remember? And you'll be like, we didn't agree to that. We never had that conversation. We agreed to this, or that conversation never took place at all. They will change the details of a conversation, or they'll basically say that you agreed to something that never took place whatsoever. That's total gaslighting. You'll say, you said this, and they'll say, I never said that. I never said that at all. Again, that's gaslighting. They'll say things like you're delusional when you're trying to say something about how something took place, or how you're feeling about something, or your perception of something that's happening. You're delusional. I mean, that's totally meant to just say you're crazy. I mean, that's straight up gaslighting. Straight up gaslighting. If you see a text message between somebody and a coworker, maybe it's your husband and a coworker that looks flirtatious or something, and it doesn't look totally appropriate. You're just jealous.
And it turns out maybe you weren't just jealous. Maybe there was something going on between them. That's all gaslighting. Those are all gaslighting types of phrases. They're designed to make you think that you're crazy. Another type of gaslighting is in conversation, where you're trying to have a conversation with them and you'll say, I want to talk to you about, these text messages that I saw. And they'll say, why are you bringing that up now? And you say, well, when would be a good time? And they'll say, oh, I don't like your tone. Well, I didn't raise my voice. Yes, you did. You just raised your voice. And now I can't talk to you because you're raising your voice at me. And now you can't get to the point of it because they keep interrupting you about that. Oh, now you just interrupted me. Oh, now it's about this. Oh, now it's about that. And you can never get to the actual point of the conversation because they keep talking about other things. And, they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else, or they'll bring up something else. Again, project, deflect, lie, deny. If you've seen any of this so far, I'd love to see a totally in the comments, because I'm sure that you guys have seen some of this so far. Okay. And then the next kinds of phrases that narcissists will use to control you are what I call guilt trip phrases. Guilt trip phrases. And you will definitely see this with covert narcissists. This is so much, because of the victim mentality with covert narcissists. I mean, this is the one thing that you always see with covert narcissists. And I have a whole video on the one thing you always see with covert narcissists. You should definitely check it out. So guilt trip phrases. This is like, especially if you try to leave a covert narcissist, you try to leave a narcissist, they might try to say things like, I would die if you leave, or don't leave the family. I would commit suicide if you leave, or you can't leave the family. Oh, I can't believe you're spending time over there. I can't believe you wouldn't be with the family. And so they'll try to guilt trip you, so that you don't do the kinds of things that you want to do. They'll try to make you feel bad about having a life or doing other things or that. And so they will use phrases like that to try to guilt trip you back into doing the things that they want you to do. That's a little bit more passive aggressive. And, you will see passive aggressive types of phrases from especially covert narcissists, you've lost weight, but, you still have a ways to go. Things like that, passive aggressive types of things from covert narcissists. It's like not so nice kinds of things. Like they try to say nice things, but then it ends up not being so nice, that sort of thing. But that's not phrases used to control you. Those are just passive aggressive types of things, but that's another whole story. But this video and this podcast is really focused on the phrases that narcissists use to control you. So let's talk about the words that narcissists hate. They're usually the ones that are trying to get you. And if you want to know about the narcissist's favorite sayings, check out my video on the narcissist's favorite sayings. They have their own little collection of things that they love to say to drive you insane, to make you feel small, to devalue you, to make you feel like you shouldn't even be a speck of dust. I mean, I've had so many people say to me, I think he or she wants me to actually kill myself. But that is not true, because then there would go their source of supply. So basically, they love getting the supply, that narcissistic supply, that thing that feeds their ego. They want to get it from as many sources as they possibly can. And if you want to know more about narcissistic supply, check out my video on narcissistic supply, where I actually define the whole thing. But basically, what they're trying to do is is make them feel more powerful over you by controlling you and driving you crazy. So, they bring you in with love bombing and they get you going and they make you think they're so wonderful and so perfect because they're really, really charismatic and they're terrific at making that you think that they are perfect in some way, whether it's in a business setting or a relationship setting. They come on with this charismatic, I'm so perfect for you way of being, and maybe even offer to do all kinds of things for you. And they might even do one or two things for you in the beginning. A lot of it is offering and future faking and all that sort of thing. And if you want to know more about future faking, check out my video on future faking as well. What can you do to actually get their goat? Like actually annoy the crap out of them. So here are some words that narcissists absolutely hate. Number one is any kind of praise or any kind of adulation or respect or anything about anyone else. They really cannot take that. Even if you just say, wow, I really admire that person. They're really good at this. Or even if you just compliment them in some way, they're really great in business. Or I like their house. Somehow any kind of compliment about someone else becomes something about them. It becomes something that irritates them, that bothers them in some way, that maybe you like them better or you think more highly of them than you think of them. And so therefore it becomes a threat to them in some way. So any kind of nice words about somebody other than them is a problem. Number two is that's not true. If you just literally say, I think you're lying, then they hate that. Especially if you have proof that they're lying or that that they're not telling the truth. I mean, you could literally show them the proof right in front of their face and they will go right to projection or denial or all those other kinds of things. And definitely check out my video on what happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie. There's several different things that they normally do, but they really, really hate it if you just simply say, and you just say it factually. You don't have to say it with emotion or anger or anything like that. You can just say it as if you're like reporting the news, like that's just not true. So that's number two. Number three is I will not. In other words, I will not go with you. I will not do that thing that you want. I will not go along with your plan to defraud somebody or whatever it is. I had a narcissistic client one time who used to say to me, Rebecca, you're really going to be lonely in heaven by yourself. And you like to try to goad me into doing something that I didn't want to do. No, I just said, no, I will not do that. So that's number three is I will not. All right. Number four is similar, which is I cannot. Like literally, I can't do that. I can't do that right now. I can't do that ever. I'm not physically able. I'm not emotionally able. I'm not spiritually able. I'm not able. I just cannot help you in whatever way it is that you want me to do. And they don't like that. I cannot, I will not happening. They don't want to hear that. And the next one is you lost. I mean, even if it's just playing a game or something and they happen to lose, you lost. They don't want to hear you lost. Even if they did lose, they don't want to hear about that. So, you can't actually say because they're going to have all kinds of reasons why, maybe it looks like they lost, but they didn't actually lose. Namely, probably because you cheated or something happened that caused them to, make it look like they lost, even though they definitely did win. And if you are so ready to be the winner, give me an I win in the comments. Okay, the next one is you're wrong. So, again, even if they are wrong and you give them proof of it, I mean, you could be showing them something on your phone or showing them a piece of paper or something that actually proves to them that they are wrong. They're never going to admit that they were wrong. And so for those of you who are dealing with a narcissist, don't waste your breath trying to prove them wrong, because they're never going to admit to it. The words that sound something like, oh my gosh, you are totally right. I'm 100% wrong. I am so sorry. You totally didn't deserve that behavior. I am terrible. You think that you're ever going to hear those words? No. I mean, you're better off waiting for goldfish to fly, or, the moon to be made out of green cheese, or whatever it is. I mean, anything is more possible than that. I mean, they're really not going to do that. So, you just have to believe that, karma will win out. You use the tactics that I teach you on how to win in other ways, creating your strategy and your leverage and all of the things that I teach you. And you will have to prove them wrong in a different way, because, just by simply saying you're wrong, they hate that, and that you're not going to get anywhere with it. The next one is, I don't care. I mean, what is worse to a narcissist? You think that being mean to a narcissist is the worst thing, or fighting back against them is the worst thing? Actually, no. The worst thing to a narcissist is that you are completely apathetic, that you just seriously don't care at all. I mean, when you can get to a point where someday maybe you don't even remember that narcissist's name, or what they look like, or what they did to you, or anything like that, that's actually the best revenge on a narcissist, because they hate that. They don't want to be irrelevant. They'd rather be in your face and having you complain about them and think that they're a horrible person than be completely irrelevant. So they absolutely hate the words, I don't care. Okay, so the next one is, I'm busy, which actually is very closely related to the 9th one, which is not now. So I'm busy or not now, meaning I can't be with you right now. I can't do what you want right now. I will not do what you want right now, or maybe ever. And they really don't want to hear that. I mean, so with I'm busy or not now, they expect you to move mountains and drop everything for them right now. Or they'll just walk right into your office or walk right into your house and expect and demand to have attention drawn upon them immediately. Or maybe they walk into a restaurant and they expect the best table right away. And if people don't immediately all, flock to giving them what it is that they want, then they actually are, personally affronted. And with narcissists, you're either for them or against them. And so if they don't perceive you to be 100% for them and giving you every minute of attention, every second of the day, immediately when they want it, then obviously you're against them, right? So that brings me to the last one, which is the word that they hate the most, which is no, in any way, shape, or form. Narcissists have no boundaries. They don't think that they should have any boundaries. They feel entitled. And so, if you say the word no in any way, shape, or form, it is a personal affront to them. They are personally triggered. That narcissistic injury gets triggered, and there comes out flying the narcissistic rage, and hell hath no fury like a narcissist scorned. So, anyway, those are the 10 phrases that narcissists hate the most. And when you are going to negotiate with them, you should keep those in the back of your mind and either use them strategically or don't use them at all, depending on what it is that you want to accomplish.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real. Therapy can feel like a really big investment, but your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, You can save up to 50% per session on average. You pay a flat weekly fee, which means more peace of mind for less. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp gives you that, all from the comfort from your home. And with over 30,000 therapists to choose from and 5 million people served globally, this is the world's largest online therapy platform, and you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate.
Now, you're dealing with a narcissist, and every time they talk to you, you just feel paralyzed. You have no idea what to say because they are master manipulators. They know exactly how to get the best of you. So here are just a couple of things that you can say to talk them down, to get them to calm down, to get them to be disarmed. So the first thing that you can say to them is, I agree with you. Even if you don't agree with them, just say, I agree with you. If they're saying things like, you're a terrible cook, or you've never been good at driving, or finances aren't your strong suit, or something that's just trying to goad you or to try to manipulate you or try to get you upset, rile you up, then you just say something like, I agree with you. Sure, that's fine. Whatever you say is correct on that. The thing I would caution you about is, obviously you're not going to say that in an email or in a text, and when they're saying like you're a terrible mother, you're not going to say I agree with you, or you're an absent father or a deadbeat dad, you're not going to say I agree with you. But if it's something that's relatively innocuous and who really cares, then just say I agree with you, because they're only saying that to try to inflame you and get you upset, to try to get you emotional. And for most of us, it actually works. And for most of us, defending ourselves is really the first natural reaction. I mean, if somebody's saying something about you that's not true, then you want to say, that's not true. Here's many examples of how that's not true. But you're never going to get the narcissist to go, oh, you know what, you're right. So just say, okay, I agree with you. So that's one way that you can disarm a narcissist. Another thing that you can say is, I don't agree with you, but you have a right to have your opinion, and I also have a right to have mine. So you're basically saying, whatever you're saying is ridiculous or whatever, but you don't have to put it in those terms. You can just say you are entitled to your opinion as I am entitled to mine. And there's really not a whole lot they can say about that. I mean, they might try to say, well, it's the right opinion or whatever, and you can say it's absolutely your opinion and it is right to you. You say things like that, you're acknowledging that they spoke, which is what they want. They want you to acknowledge that they spoke. They want you to hear them. They want you to see them. All human beings want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter. And so you give them that, but you're not agreeing with them. And you're not pushing back, and you're not defending yourself. You're not trying to prove they're wrong and all of those things, because of course, you're never going to get anywhere with that. So you're just kind of disarming them. You're pulling back and you're saying, you are certainly entitled to your opinion, and I know it's right to you, and I know that you wholeheartedly believe it. Great. You are entitled to do that. I am also entitled to my opinion, and we can agree to disagree. Another way to disarm a narcissist is to use we phrases. Even if you don't think that you did anything wrong or that you need to do anything to make it better, you can just say, we need to work on things, or we both have a faulty perception about, or we both have contributed to this situation, something like that. Because if they feel like you're not targeting them and that you're taking part of the blame and responsibility, then they'll feel less like they need to keep pushing. And so that will also help disarm. So using we phrases will definitely help. We will work on this together, that kind of thing.
Another way to disarm a narcissist is to kind of assuage their ego a little bit by saying something like, let me ask your advice on this. How would you handle this particular situation? Let me see what you think about this. How would you feel about doing it this way? Or what's your opinion about if we decide to proceed in this manner? Or what do you think about this plan? You know, getting them to weigh in on something that you think that they're being ridiculous about will help them. And so you just get them to, it also kind of makes them sort of highlight the ridiculousness of their behavior. You have to be careful because obviously if they've already given you a plan and you don't like it, then this is not the time to use that particular phrase. But that's one of the things that you can do to disarm a narcissist. Another phrase that you can use is, I hear what you're saying. And basically remember that a narcissist is the most insecure, the most they have absolutely no inner self-esteem. They derive absolutely all of their value from the external. So by saying something to them like, I hear what you're saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm validating you. Here's what you said, because a lot of times they think, oh, you're not listening to me. So just by saying, I hear what you're saying, and here's what you said, just that alone will sometimes disarm them because they feel heard, they feel seen, and they feel like you have given them the value that they need. Remember, narcissists need an endless amount of supply. And so, supply is given to them in the form of compliments, or it could be, in being in a certain position, or it could be recognition in some way. It could be just even being associated with the right people. Supply is just whatever it is that feeds their need for external value. So if you say, I hear what you're saying, and you repeat it back to them, even if you're then going to go on and say, and I don't agree with you, and you are entitled to your opinion, at least they feel heard. So these are phrases to disarm the narcissist, to try to get them to calm down a little bit. All right, so let's talk about those 8 phrases that will destroy narcissists. So first of all, narcissists are extremely fragile. They don't act fragile, I understand that, but they are actually very extremely fragile. In a lot of ways, they're way more scared of you than you are of them. And so, a lot of this, I just want to say at the beginning, you don't want to say these things that, are going to, and put yourself into a bad position. I don't want you to do anything that's going to put yourself into a position of being potentially afraid, fearful, in fear for your life, in imminent fear of, harm in any possible way. So I say all of these things so that you can kind of caution yourself on the best ways to actually phrase something so that you can actually get something that you want out of the situation. Okay, so be very careful when you are saying some of these things. A lot of them I would say don't say. Some of them I would definitely say do say, and I'll kind of like delineate that out as we go forward here. Okay, so the first one is, I know that you are, and then insert like bad thing that they're doing, like I know you're lying, I know you're cheating, I know what you're saying isn't true. Anything that exposes them, basically. Like if you are getting ready to expose a narcissist, you want to be very, very strategic about it. And there are times that you want to do that 100%. And that's going to be part of your leverage and part of an overall strategy that you're creating when you're going to negotiate with them. I am 100% all for ethically manipulating the manipulator and getting them to do something that you want them to do. But you have to be super careful about how and when you are going to present the information. Okay, so
So the first one is just anything that exposes them. All right. The next one is, I don't remember that. Basically what you're saying in this one is, I'm not paying full attention to everything that you're saying. And that's definitely going to destroy them. They want to feel at least like you are revering them, and they have your adulation, and everything that they're saying and doing, you're hanging on. And so if you say something like, I don't remember that, or it's sort of a whatever to me, then that will destroy them. And, by the way, kind of, we all want to feel seen, heard, and know that we matter. So some of these things are also things that, might be hurtful to any of us, right? Okay, so the next one is, and this is totally a narcissist thing, and that is the I can't right now, or I don't have time for you right now. That's something that, a reasonable person will understand. If you are a busy person and, maybe you didn't have time to read that text right at that moment, or you didn't have time to, you don't have time to drop everything that you're doing and do it right for them right at that moment. But narcissists are extremely easily slighted. And, like they even hear tones, like I always say, they hear tones like dogs hear whistles, like, there was no tone, like, but they think it's sarcastic, and they think that there's something that you said or did. So you have to be very careful about their ego with that. And I say that because you want to be able to get what you want from them. So you want to be careful about how and when you're going to present things, and how and when you're going to say certain things. So you want to be definitely strategic about that. But if you hear that from them, that's definitely something that that they won't like. So you just got to be careful about the I can or whatever. But of course, have your boundaries, right? Of course, have your own boundaries. All right. So the next one is, you are a failure, or you're a loser. I'm so disappointed in you. Something like that. I mean, you can certainly say things like, this isn't working for me. This situation isn't working for me. This conversation isn't working for me. The way you're saying that isn't working for me. Something like that. The way you're coming across. But be very careful about saying things like you're a loser. That's one of those that I would highly recommend you stay away from. You don't want to put yourself into a dangerous situation, and it's not going to get what you want out of the negotiation anyway. All right. So that's that one. And the next one is, you caused bad things to happen. It's your fault. It's your responsibility, something like that. They definitely don't want to have to take responsibility for anything. If you try to get them to take responsibility for something, then it's, deny, deflect, project, all of those things. And if you've seen any of these things so far, give me an I've seen it down in the comments below. And you do want to be careful, because you don't want them to come unleashing on you, and you don't want them to, have that narcissistic rage come flying out, right? So, okay, the next one is, I don't believe you. And this is, where you're basically saying to them, I know you're a liar, and I see through you. I see exactly who you are. And by the way, if you do try to catch a narcissist in a lie, you definitely want to check out my video on that. I have a whole video on what happens when you try to catch a narcissist in a lie. They try to like slither their way out of that situation, right? And sometimes they can be very good at it, but sometimes they think they're better at getting away with it than they actually are. So that's the next one. The next one is just the word no. They don't want to have to be told no. They don't want to have to be told that you're not going to, do exactly what they say when they want you to do it, and all of those sorts of things, right? It's like, They want to have full control over you. They want to know that you are going to jump when they say jump, and they're going to say how high. They work very hard to have control over you. I mean, they like to have control over everything. And so they don't want to hear that word no. That's definitely a word that will destroy them. So, when you are dealing with them, especially in a negotiation setting, there are ways that you can disagree with them without actually disagreeing with them, like by saying no. I mean, you can even say things like, I agree, that's your position. I agree that that's how you feel. I agree that your offer is blah, blah, blah. Then they hear, I agree. So you can say those things without actually having to say no. I mean, you can even say things like, good point, great feedback, thanks for sharing, something like that. And, but blah, 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 blah. You don't have to physically say the word no. Okay. And the last thing that will actually destroy them, even though they treat you terribly sometimes, is the word goodbye. They don't want to see their source of narcissistic supply walking out the door, whether it's in a business relationship or a personal relationship. They do not want to see you walking out the door. So, they don't want to see the word goodbye. It's so confounding because they treat you poorly and then wonder why you want to leave. But that is one of their biggest fears, by the way. And you want to check out my video on what their biggest fears are, is you leaving, you abandoning them. So they don't want to hear that word goodbye.
If you're a renter, this is a no-brainer. You earn points on groceries and travel, so why not on rent? With Built, paying rent finally pays off. There's no cost to join, and just by paying rent, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, and your next Lyft ride, and more. When you pay rent through Built, you unlock two powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to your exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. These include extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, and unique experiences only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to miles and hotel points. Your rent can literally take you places. Start paying rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/negotiate. That's joinbilt.com/negotiate. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. That's joinbuilt.com/negotiate.
Okay, so let's talk about those phrases that to shut down narcissists, that silence them and get them to stop with what they're doing with you. All right, so the first one may surprise you actually, and that is, I agree with you. Sometimes you can just say, I agree with you, and you're not actually really even agreeing with them. You can even say things like, I agree that that's what you think. I agree that that's your perception. I agree that that's what you just said. You don't even have to say anything. You're really not even agreeing with anything, but you can just say, I agree with you. And you do have to be careful sometimes if you're going to agree with them, and you could say, yep, I agree. I'm a terrible mother, or I agree, I'm awful in business, or something like that. You just have to be careful that you don't agree with things like that could potentially hurt you down the road. You certainly definitely don't want to agree to any of these things in writing that will, because remember, every writing is a potential trial exhibit, everything you put your hand to. Just a little side note, little tip there for you. So, just remember that narcissists are using certain phrases to manipulate you all the time. And so there's a way that you can kind of ethically manipulate the manipulator by shifting it around. And if you do want to know more about phrases that narcissists use to manipulate you, definitely check out my video on that topic. So number one is, I agree with you. Number two is, I'm sorry that that's what you think. You basically, it's sort of the same kind of principle as I agree with you. You're not really saying you're sorry. You're saying, I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that's what you believe. I'm sorry that we are in this situation. I'm sorry that this happened. I'm sorry that we aren't able to agree on anything. I'm sorry that we seem to be so far apart in our positions. Just both I agree with you and I'm sorry are just sort of ways that kind of disarm them. They're thrown off by that just a little bit, and it also gives them some of that adulation that they desperately need because they're always on the hunt for that narcissistic supply. So those are the first two. I agree with you and I'm sorry that's what you think. I'm sorry that we're here. So that's number two. Number three is you have every right to your opinions. Again, you're kind of taking yourself out of this situation. You want to start to get to a place where you're not engaged, where you're not triggered, where you're not emotionally pulled into this thing. Narcissists are trying really hard to trigger you, especially in negotiations, because then they want to try to get you, negotiating with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Everything you say and do will definitely be used against you. So you want to make sure that you are disengaging and putting yourself in a place where you're just almost kind of observing the situation. And by saying things like you have a right to your opinion, you're almost taking yourself out of the situation and just observing them. So that's number three. Number four is in that same vein as far as the emotional side of things. It's, I can see that you are, and then insert whatever it is. You're observing them. I can see that you are angry. I can see that you are frustrated. I can see that you are upset. By doing this, you are actually acknowledging their feelings, which they want. They want to be the center of attention. And it also helps you because you are now starting to disengage. You are observing the situation. And the more you can do that, as I said, the more power you will have. The more emotionally charged you are, the less power you have, the less leverage you have. Remember, you're trying to create leverage in this situation. And if you want to know more about creating leverage in negotiations with narcissists, definitely check out my video on that topic as well. But, sometimes you'll even start to see them break down. You'll start to see them collapse. And, that will actually start to help you. The more you start to silence them, the more you start to shut them down, the less control they'll have and the more mistakes they will actually start to make. Okay. So the next one is, if you want to talk now, then I will insist that you are calm and respectful. That's really, really important that you are setting those boundaries, that you are making sure you're drawing a line in the sand. And by the way, if you are so ready to set boundaries, give me a set boundaries in the comments below. Just write set boundaries so that you can remind yourself that that's what you're starting to do here, that you're starting to disengage. So, you can say, I'm willing to negotiate a contract with you. I'm willing to negotiate this deal with you, but there are certain things that are just not negotiable. And my self-respect, that ain't negotiable. Okay. So set boundaries, right? Okay. Next one is, I believe that's how you feel. So again, you're saying, I believe you. I believe that's how you feel. I believe that's your perception. I believe that's your position. I believe that that's what you think happened. All of those things are acknowledging what they're saying, but you're not really doing anything. So, but it helps to silence them. It helps to shut them down because they don't know what to do with that. They know what to do with pushing against you because then they can push back and they can manipulate back and they can do underhanded things. And that's what they want. They want to drag you down into that mud with them. So the next one is, that's an interesting perspective. You're not saying anything with that other than, I heard that you said words, right? It's like, that's an interesting perspective. Okay, that's what you said. Got it. All right, so that's the next one. And the next one is, this approach or this conversation is not working for me. And so, and I have said that. I mean, I said that to a lawyer one time who wanted me to become a partner in his particular firm. And I was like, listen, I really like you, and I love your practice and your partners or whatever, but this situation is not working for me. This situation is not going to work for me. And, there's really nothing you can say back to that. I mean, you're not accusing the other person of doing anything. You're not saying you are wrong for me. You're saying the situation doesn't work for me. And again, or the approach doesn't work for me, or this conversation is not working for me. Again, keeping your self-respect, your dignity, your self-worth right up here, right at the forefront. Those things are not negotiable. Certain things are negotiable. Those are not negotiable. So those are the 8 phrases that I have for you that will silence those narcissists. They won't know what to do with it. It will wobble them. It will take them off their game, and it'll help you actually feel much more powerful in the negotiation.
You're dealing with that narcissist. They're driving you crazy. They're driving you insane. They're making you feel miserable, powerless, paralyzed. They enjoy watching you sweat. They enjoy making your life miserable. What can you do to stop them right in their tracks? It's so hard sometimes because you feel like right in your face, they do whatever they can to trigger you. They go out of their way to carefully and perfectly curate things to say to you so that you are feeling crazy or that you're triggered. Back in the video that I did, Narcissists Care a Lot, you can definitely check that out.
Lioness.
I talked about that show, I Care a Lot, with Rosamund Pike. It was such a perfect example of what happens when you get triggered. So she was sitting there talking to this older woman in the nursing home, and she saw the camera there. She knew that she was going to be able to trigger this woman. So she sat there and she said things over and over and over again to her, like, you're an old woman, you're crazy, you're this, you're that. And the old woman got so triggered that she stood up and actually started choking her. And then what did the narcissist do? She went right into court and used it. Look, she's crazy. And that's what often happens when you're dealing with narcissists in a negotiation setting. They goad you and trigger you so much that you end up making mistakes. You end up doing things that now you have to undo, and you dig your own hole more because they've triggered you. And that's what they want to do. Dealing with a narcissist is like getting arrested. Have you ever heard that one? Yeah, it's whatever you do or say is definitely going to be used against you. So you got to be really, really careful about not being triggered. And in that video that I just referenced, Care a Lot, or Narcissists Care a Lot, that I did, I have a whole lot of ideas for you on not getting triggered. So definitely check that out. Okay, so dealing with a narcissist, and you really, really want to make sure that you're not triggered, and you want to shut them down. You want to stop them in their tracks. You want to disarm them. So how do you go ahead and do that? So the very first way that you can do that, the first thing that you can say is, you're right. Because now you're basically just taking away their power. You know, it's sort of like when you push against something, when you push against your hand and the other person is pushing, 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 but then you let go and then the other hand just flies to the side. That's what happens. So you just say, you're right. You know, you're right. I'm worthless. You're right. I'm terrible. You're right. I'm the one that caused all the problems. You're right this, you're right that, whatever. And, you know, then they might start to get mad, like, oh, now you're patronizing me, or this, that, and the other. They're going to try to keep you getting into the mud with them. But just say, no, I really think you're right. Yep. So that's definitely one way that you can just start to, you know, shut them down a little bit. The next thing that you can do is you can say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I upset you. I'm sorry it seems to be that you're very angry. I'm sorry that we're having issues. I'm sorry that there are words between us. I'm sorry I didn't say the right thing. Whatever you want to say, you don't necessarily have to say, I'm sorry, like there's something wrong with you, but you could even say, I'm sorry that you're so upset. You could even like observe that to them. Like, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. Just observe them. So another thing that you can do is just, without emotion or without any kind of issues, just, without feeling triggered, just say, I don't want to have this argument anymore. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me. I can have this conversation with you when you are ready to have a conversation that is rational. So that's the next thing that you can say is, I don't want to argue with you, or I'm not going to argue with you. Okay? So another thing that you can do is say something to them like, I can see where you might think that. I mean, even if you don't think that, well, I can see that. Or I can see that that's your perception, or I can accept that that's your perception of me. You're not admitting to anything at that point. You're just saying, I can see that. Okay, fine. So that's another way that you can do it. And if you are so ready to stop them in their tracks, give me a stop them in their tracks in the comments right now. Okay, so the next thing that you can say to them to shut them down is, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. You don't have to say, I agree with you, you're right. You don't even have to say any of those other things. You can just say thank you. Because what are they going to say to thank you? Right? I mean, they'll be like, thank you for what? They'll try to continue to get you down in the mud with them, right? But then you're just both rolling around in mud, neither of you are getting anywhere with that. So by staying away from being triggered like that and just, making observations, I always say just the facts, ma'am, or sir, never explain, justify, or overshare. Don't try to get, defensive. Don't try to get them to see the error of their ways. They're never going to come to any of that. So you might as well give up on that idea, all right? So what's the last one leading up to the drum roll of the last one? It is say nothing. Just say nothing at all. Don't respond. Just walk away. Go gray rock. Stick to your boundaries. Walk away from them. And by the way, if you want to know what the difference is between ghosting, silent treatment, and having boundaries, check out my video on that topic as well. But the last thing you can do is just say nothing at all. Just walk away. And just say, I'm having my life, namaste and walk away. That's one of my favorite little sayings, is namaste and walk away. Wish you well, but I wish you well over there. Like that's what I say about the narcissists that were in my life. I wish them well, but I wish them well over there, away from me, not in my space anymore. I'm done with that. 10 phrases to shut down those narcissists. All right, so number one is, I can see that you are upset. I like this one because you're just observing to them. I also like this one because it also helps you to kind of divorce yourself from it, step away from it, so that you can sort of breathe and put a little bit of space between you and that emotion, so that you are just kind of like looking at it, you're just observing it as if you are now a third-party observer. Like it's just something that you are seeing, but you're not actually engaging in it. And it's not really part of you. It's just something that you're watching. I can see that you are upset. I can see that this is something that you are angry about. I can see that maybe this is something that we need to talk about later when you are more calm. So it is a great way for you to also step back, but it is also a way to shut them down in that moment. So that's number one. Number two
is a way to take it so that they don't feel so like isolated, because narcissists don't want to feel called out. So number 2 is we can both work together on this. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't want to work together with a narcissist on that. I know you don't want to, but all I'm saying is they don't want to feel called out. So sometimes you have to make them feel like we're all together and we're on the same side and we're doing this together, so that they don't feel like they're being called out. Even if you're not necessarily doing this, remember what I always say: ethically manipulating the manipulator. So even if you don't feel like it, sometimes you have to take your ego out of it, and you can say things like, we're working together on this, just so that they feel like they're not being called out on this. Okay, so that's number 2. We can both work together on this, so they feel like it's a we instead of a you. Right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is I hear you. Hey, all people want to feel seen, heard, and know that they matter, but narcissists especially, what do they need more than anything? They want to feel like adulation, so sometimes you got to do what you got to do to give them that. And, I call it bartering. Sometimes you hear it because, being called like narcissistic fluffing. You got to fluff up their ego a little bit, like you're fluffing up a pillow. I always say you don't do this all the time. And you have to be doing this strategically, because I know some of you have given and given, like you got nothing left of yourself to give. So you have to make a choice where you're only doing this, where you're saying, I'm making a decision to do this because I'm going to do this right now in order to get something in return. So sometimes you need to say, I hear you in that moment, because you are going to get something in return at that moment as well. And this is especially true when you are in a negotiations setting, for sure. All right, so that's number 3. Number 4, I like this one too, because especially when the emotions get high and intense and red hot, how do you calm them down? You can say things like, I have no right to control how you see me. Okay, fine. You can say whatever you want about me. I have no right to control how you see me. The old sticks and stones can break my bones. You can say whatever you want. I have no right to control how you see me. So you can say whatever. And it's great because they're starting to recognize at that point that you're not going to be moved by how they perceive you or the things that they say about you. You can say that I have no control how you see me or the things that you say. And that will kind of shut them down, because they're starting to realize that they're not getting an emotional rise out of you, which is the thing that they want more than anything, because that's the payoff for them. When you get upset, that gives them narcissistic supply, and then that's the payoff that they want. Okay, so when you don't give them that, then they don't get that payoff. So that's number 4. Number 5, I'm not upset with you. Again, you're shutting them down because you're not giving them that supply. That is also a way to shut them down. Anytime you are cutting off that supply source, that's when you are starting to shut them down, because that's their food, that's their oxygen, that's their lifeblood. And they're always trying to say things to trigger you, to try to get that supply out of you, to try to get that rise out of you, to try to rile you up. And if you want to know more about the kinds of things that they say, you can definitely check out my video called Narcissist Favorite Catchphrases, because there's a lot of things that they say to try to get you riled up. All right. Number six is your approach is not working for me. You know, the kinds of things that you're saying, the kinds of things that you're doing. If you're trying to get something from me here, if whatever it is that you're trying to get me to do, you know, it's not working for me. So, you know, you're not going to be getting what you want from me. So perhaps you might want to try a different approach. So that's number six. Number seven is you can disagree with me, but you have no right to disrespect me. I like this. I used to have to say this kind of thing to opposing counsel sometimes when I was litigating on a regular basis. Like, we can disagree without being disagreeable. You can disagree with me, but we don't have to be disrespectful. We can disagree, but perhaps we just need to take this up with the judge. You know, I mean, I used to have to say this kind of thing to other lawyers. But, you know, when you're dealing with narcissists, they love to go low. They love to do the low blow thing. They love to make it personal right away. And it's up to you to set that standard, to set that bar, because they're not going to do it. You have to do it. I mean, you don't get your goals. You set your standards. You do. And, you know, they start treating you based on how you've allowed them. I mean, you know, they've conditioned you to a certain extent. And so you have to kind of recondition them based on how you're going to allow yourself to be treated. So just decide, you know, hey, you can disagree with me, but you don't have the right to disrespect me. So I want you to start right now by writing respect me in the comments below. That's where you're going to start. Number 8 is what you are saying does not align with the facts. What you are saying does not align with the facts. I don't think I need to say anything more with that, right? You mean, sometimes they don't even necessarily care, because narcissists just lie. Sometimes they lie about things that are readily verifiable and things they don't even necessarily need to lie about, which is pretty crazy to me. Next one is I agree with you. I love this one because you can even agree with things that aren't even necessarily where you're agreeing. Like, you can say, I agree with you that we are never going to agree. I agree with you that that's your opinion. I agree with you that that's what you think. I agree with you that that's what you believe. So that is number 9. And number 10 is goodbye. Number 10 is I'm walking away. Number 10 is see ya later or never. You know, that's really the best one, honestly. I mean, when you can get to a point where you are not ever having to talk to this person ever again in your life, and you can really shut them down completely, that's really the best, honestly. I mean, not everybody can get to that point. There are times in your life when you do have to continue to have this person in your life. You know, I get that because of, you know, children or family, or maybe, you know, there is a business, or there is, you know, stuff that's going on in your life that it's impossible to completely walk away. So let's talk about this gaslighting thing. So narcissists love to use gaslighting. It is a way to make you feel like you're crazy. It is a word that stems from an old movie, which was also apparently a show back in the 30s. And what the premise was is there was a husband who was trying to make the wife feel like she was crazy. So he would blow out these gas lights, and she would say, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. So that's what he did. Apparently, in the end, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, which I haven't even seen it myself, but apparently she ends up being onto him, which is going to be the outcome for you, whether you're dealing with them in a personal situation or divorce or whatever your situation is. Maybe it's a probate situation, maybe it's a business partner, maybe it's future clients or people that you're having to deal with in any aspect of your life. It really doesn't matter, because you're going to see gaslighting if you're dealing with a narcissist. It's one of the things that they love to do. And so let's talk about gaslighting. So
Gaslighting, as I mentioned, is a way to make you think that you're crazy. There are many different ways that they use gaslighting. They straight up just lie to your face. They manipulate reality. They project, they deflect, they use other people as their scapegoats, or they just, try to coerce you and pressure you. However, they're using it. It's basically all the same. And they use it if they're covert, they use it if they're overt. It doesn't really matter what kind of narcissist you are looking at. By the way, if you want to know more about the covert passive aggressive narcissist, I have a whole video on that special type of person. Yeah, I had to deal with a couple of them in my own personal life, not as a husband, but people close enough to help me see the light as to what they actually look like, causing lots of drama, trauma, and chaos in my own life. And I know how horrible it is. And this is why I'm on a mission over here. I have a personal crusade, as I'm pretty sure the only lawyer on the planet who actually has a way to negotiate with narcissists. And that's why I have such a personal mission on this. Anyway, let's talk about those 8 gaslighting phrases, shall we? All right. So number 1 is we discussed that and you agreed. Like they say that they've planned something for the weekend. It happens to be your anniversary weekend and they're going away with the boys. And you're like, you're going away on our anniversary? And he says, yeah, we are. And I already told you that and you agreed to that. And you're like, I never heard about this trip ever. But that's the kind of thing that they do. We discussed that and you agreed. So that's number 1. Number 2 is adding or can't you take a joke to the end of a cruel sentence. Oh, you're just overly sensitive. Oh, can't you just take a joke? Adding to the end of a sentence does not make it funny. And it doesn't make it less punchy or hurtful or cruel, which they actually know, by the way, but they think that they're adding to it so that they get to hurt you, but they don't get to be blamed as a hurtful person. It's kind of really weird and screwed up, I know. I'm not making this up. You all know that you've seen this, right? And so give me a right in the comments if you have definitely seen this before so far. All right, next one, number 3. Is changing what you're trying to hold them accountable for. So, you're saying that they were supposed to do the books at the office or something like that. They'll say, oh, but look what I've done. I did all of this stuff. And so they're like moving the target so that they're no longer talking about what they were actually supposed to do. I actually had this with somebody who was supposed to do some work for me, like an outside vendor, and they were supposed to help me accomplish a certain task. And when I was trying to hold them accountable for it, they just started telling me about the other benefits that I received from, not even from them, but like people that they introduced me to. And so therefore, I shouldn't look at the fact that they shouldn't be held accountable for what they were supposed to be doing. I know, really messed up. So the next one is, I never did that or said that. You're imagining things. So something that they did or something that they said, they will say that you are imagining. Okay, number 5 is you're way too emotional. So now they're going to take issue with how you're saying it, that you're emotional, you're upset. I don't like your tone. I don't like the way you said that. You are shouting at me. And now you're just talking about that. And again, it's gaslighting to not have to take responsibility. It's about you. It's you're upset, you're emotional, you're shouting. Even if you're not shouting, even if you're like talking like this, you're shouting at them. And so now you're the one who's the problem. So, why they use gaslighting is it's a way to destabilize you, get control over you, and, make you think that you're crazy, and so that you don't see who they really are. You start to question your own mind. You're seriously traumatized, and sometimes, getting over that can be as bad as being deprogrammed if you were in a religious cult or something like that. You have to really reprogram your brain. You have to really change your neuronal patterns. I was actually talking to a client yesterday, and she was saying that she actually went to see Joe Dispenza speak like 5 times in a whole year because of, having to reprogram her brain and reprogram her neuronal patterns and all that. And so, that's the kind of thing that they do and why they do it. And especially when you're negotiating with them, you want to make sure that you start to see it, because then it will be much easier for you to realize, oh, that's off. I know my tone wasn't bad. I know we didn't discuss that. I know I never agreed to that. And it will give you so much more power when you are negotiating with them. All right. So the next one is you're just insecure, or maybe you're just jealous. You're making too much of things. This is especially if you're in a personal relationship and you're trying to call them out on their behavior, or you catch them, doing something that they shouldn't be. They'll just try to make it seem like you're the one who's, crazy, insecure, jealous, making too much of things or whatever. The next one, number 7, is you're just crazy, or it's your fault. So in other words, if they ended up doing something that they shouldn't have, maybe they cheated on you or something like that, it becomes your fault because you didn't give them enough sex or something like that. I do have a whole video, by the way, on narcissism and sex and how narcissists do use sex to control you. It's really an extension of how they behave in the rest of their lives and in their world and in their relationships. But it can be especially hurtful and demoralizing. So if you want to check that out, you definitely can. And the last one is that never happened. So, things that happened that happened, and you even have proof that they happened, they will literally, without blinking, say that never happened. I'm often reminded of the George Costanza, where, in Seinfeld, where he was like, it's not a lie if you believe it. And so sometimes I wonder if they actually believe their lies or not. But that is one thing that they do. The key is to understand that this is what they do. It is a way to try to shift your reality and question your own mind. And the key is in starting to look at it, observe it, see it for what it is, almost see it as like a third person, and recognize it when it happens, especially in negotiations, so that you can just hold steady, hold fast, and be able to know what is real and what isn't. And this, this definitely happens when they move goalposts and they change deals and all that sort of thing too.